Hey guys, this is WhiteTiger. I recommend watching this video at 2 times speed. Sorry I've been gone. I was in the Galapagos for some time, but now I'm back. And during that time, the flare drop occurred. Unfortunately, I did not have my ledger on me because I didn't want to lose it in the middle of nowhere while traveling. And so I missed the ability to sell it immediately. I did arrive back in my apartment in Puerto Rico and immediately sold as soon as I got back because I anticipate around 70 to 90% more downside over the next year. And let me explain that briefly. Here we have a price chart of Flare, and I have a simple, very arbitrary fib retracement from the beginning of the BitTrue IOUs. As you can see, the volume here is essentially 0 until we come to the airdrop date, and then we're seeing the weekly chart. So what typically happens here is you see retracement, we see the retracement to the golden ratio, and then it bounced, and a new top around the rejection level, which is another golden ratio, and then another reject bounce. This bounce that came back down was almost like 100% retracement onto these wicks, so that's very bearish. And the bearishness was true because when volume actually came in, we found a true price for today, which is on the low circulating supply with high inflation. What does that mean? That means there's probably much more downside. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they never took a macroeconomics course. All right, so what we need to do is actually ignore all this price data because it's completely useless because it has to do with basically zero volume with zero utility, and it already played out its corrective structure. So I'm going to turn that off and essentially go to where the volume kicks in. And let's go to let's do the 2-hour chart first. That should be fine. So we see the airdrop occurred on this big right red bar, and then the volume came in shortly after once everyone could move it to exchanges so they could sell it. So first what I want to show is if we actually take the correct retracement, there is quite a lot of bearishness here. You see the initial sell-off and everything is hanging below the golden ratio. That's extremely bearish. Volume is slightly decreasing, but there's no true increase in price. It's getting ready to make a large move. I anticipate this coming back up to around potentially maybe 5.5 cents, maybe a full retracement to this, but I don't anticipate this actually breaking 8 cents anytime soon. If it does, that would just be a dead cat bounce, and it would still probably have a lot more further falling. If we take a look, some people might think, oh, well, this is the bounce, and it's actually quite bullish because you're hanging above the golden ratio here, and we're coming for a squeeze, and the squeeze was up. This is incorrect. This is not how you do technical analysis because this is not the move. The move was the downside move, and it takes time to kind of recognize those types of market structures. This is irrelevant, and one way for me to show that is to compare it with the Songbird airdrop, which occurred about a year ago. So if we actually take a look at Songbird, all right, I got it up. Typically when you see an initial drop and subsequent drops, that means the market structure is downward, even in the beginning of a token distribution event or the token generation event. Here, airdrop generation event, we had an initial drop for sell pressure, and you see if you take this fib, that's incorrect because, oh, it's above the golden, but then it broke down. And you want to do the same thing right here. Oh, it's golden, it's holding above, no, it broke down. That is not how you do this. Thus, this is not the right way to look at it. It is not bullish because it's above the golden. It's actually extremely bearish. Lastly, I wanted to go over some quick back of the envelope tokenomics on Flare and Songbird. And what better to compare this Canary network to rather than Polkadot, Kusama, and Moonriver Moonbeam. You can look these up on your own time. I'm not going to explain it to you. Here, basically, we do some very arbitrary looks at what the price of FLR or fair value should be after it's fully diluted in 3 years due to the inflation. Here we have the distributions according to the FLR white paper and the inflation rates at 10, 7, and 5% in years 1, 2, and 3. And we also have the inflation of Songbird over the 3 years of the total supply. And if at current prices hold, we would have these fully diluted values, which would give Songbird about a 5% value compared to FLR market cap wise. And comparing that would provide you a FLR price of around just under a cent. If you did a fully diluted value comparison, if you used it with Kusama and DOT, that would give you about 5 cents, which is about what it is now, but this is extremely arbitrary since Kusama and DOT have large ecosystems that have several dApps and use cases behind them where FLR is brand new and still having sell pressure occur. If you compared it to Moonriver Moonbeam, it's actually overpriced, and you would see a fair value of around a little over a cent. If you take the overvaluation, it makes absolutely no sense to use Kusama DOT. However, for Moonriver Moonbeam, you would have around a 10x overvaluation if it had the same market cap. If you did a price percent comparison, which I personally really like, you would actually come up with around 0.003 cents and around 1/100th of a cent if you compared it to Moonriver Moonbeam. And if you took the TA from the FLR price on the launch data, the golden ratio is around 0.006. And if you even use the IOU data, which I would not recommend, but even if you use that, you would come up with about a cent, which is still lower than what the price is today. You'd come up with an average of 0.006, which lo and behold is around the TA price. So even from our arbitrary analysis on all of these tools, we are coming up with something on average just around that TA golden ratio price. I hope this is helpful. I personally will not be buying any FLR until it is around this average price, and even then I may wait depending on the macro environment at the time. Remember, this has no consideration to the collateral usage of FLR. When it's actually in use and they're using it to collateralize FXRP, FXLM, etc., the supply would go down and thus the diluted valuation would be lower and thus the price actually can be higher. However, TA doesn't lie. As long as the volume remains stable and increases as the sell pressure increases, I do anticipate around a 75% plus drop in the current price. Hope you had a clawsome time with your feline friend White Tiger. Don't forget to scratch the like button, leave a meow in the comments, and subscribe for more wild content.